capture report is getting closer to finalization, with the fourth part released for public consumption. But whistleblowers are still emphasizing the need for protection and for prosecutions to take place. The fourth installment of the report focuses on findings related to Eskom, Alex Cole, EOH Holdings, and the Free State asbestos saga. In fact, for reaction on some of the recommendations, let's bring in whistleblowers Cynthia Stimpel, who actually lifted the lid on corruption at South African Airways. She's also author of Hijackers on Board. That's where she details her journey as one of the key whistleblowers at that SOE. Cynthia, it's great to see you. Thank you so much indeed for making time to speak to us. I mean, you know, in your particular story, you've essentially been able to tell us how you risked what you then thought was your dream job in order to lift the lid on corruption. SAA isn't the focus of this particular report, but you certainly get the sense that it's the same script, just with different characters.
Thank you, Ayanda. Thanks for inviting me. Yes, I totally agree with you. The modus operandi for the state capture, if you look at each of the state-owned entities, yes, it's the same. So different characters, but it's the same following of procedures, at least contravening those procedures and hiring the type of people to put in certain positions that can easily be forced or coerced to do what they did.
Yeah. In your particular case, I mean, your speaking out saved the taxpayer more than 200 million rand, I think it was, because you had essentially prevented a dodgy deal that was about to be signed whilst you were the general treasurer at SAA. But that came at a great personal cost. And from the moment we heard about these allegations to where we are now in making sense of what impact they've had, it's really disheartening to see that a lot of whistleblowers still feel very unsafe despite what they've been able to give the public.
Indeed, Ayanda, that's exactly where we are. So there's the personal risk, personal sacrifice that whistleblowers take, and they do it not because they even think of the idea as whistleblowing at the time. I didn't, and neither did any of my fellow whistleblowers. At the time when you see something wrong, you're just doing your job to the best of your ability. And so you speak up, or you raise the issues, or you start questioning. And the end result for all of us is that we do suffer this personal risk. We do suffer loss of our jobs. We get retaliated against. We get victimized. Some of us even lost our lives, as we do know of a few cases that have happened recently. So it is a hard, long road for whistleblowers. And I think here's the opportunity now with the Zondo Commission report, almost in its finalization. Obviously, part 4 was released yesterday. We still have the last part 5, to come in the next month or so. Is that here's an opportunity to make reparations for whistleblowers. We need to make sure that we cannot just use the words and say you have courage, you are brave, we honor you. There needs to be reparations done because these whistleblowers are still suffering even today.
Athol Williams, who's also quite a prominent whistleblower, who's had to leave the country because he risks, he's essentially trying to evade any kind of threat to his life. He's spoken to us before and said the reason why there's been such little movement in providing some kind of protection for whistleblowers is because those who are in power today have an interest in ensuring that not more is said about what actually took place during those years. Does that sound like something you'd agree with?
Yes, indeed. As we can see what's happened over the past year, so we've had the previous leadership that under former President Jacob Zuma, and we've got the current leadership now under President Cyril Ramaphosa. But if you look at the methods of the way we operate and conduct certain things, there has still been no prosecutions of any of the state-owned entities or people implicated in any of the cases, despite all the evidence that has been there. So and we can see there's still the holding back and stopping anyone speaking further out regarding any atrocities or misdemeanors that have been performed. So yes, I'd agree with Athol on that. I mean, Athol had to leave the country fearing for his life because he implicated over 39 people in his evidence.
Yeah. With that in mind, would it then be erroneous for us to say that we're past the state capture years, because it feels like its tentacles are still very much with us?
No, Ayanda, it's actually deep. It's deep and spread very wide, like a spider's web, and as you mentioned, tentacles. Let's just go 2 days back when Advocate Tefo was arrested in court. One just looks at that action alone, tells you the amount of power that can be wielded in an incorrect manner, going against the Constitution, going against the judicial rules that are maintained in court and how people should be conducting themselves. And so my sense is that our corruption is so deep and so wide, and so many people have been contaminated and tainted by it. And it's become almost a culture, the behavior of how they do things. You cannot now just go and apply for a new ID without someone approaching you and saying, I can get you in the front of the queue if you pay me 500 Rand. I mean, it's that endemic already. And for me, that's such a sad place that we've reached at South Africa. So it's way down from senior leadership right down into every little area where we have to work with municipalities, whether you're just applying for your license or whatever the fact is, there is some form of corruption. Why can't we just have everything functioning like it should? If I have to wait in the queue for an hour, so be it. But why force your way paying 500 and we then as individuals create and we exacerbate the corruption. We become part of this culture and we're promoting it by just that way, our own personal behavior. So I think each one of us needs to look at how we conduct ourselves, firstly, and hold others accountable. Yeah. Because none of the perpetrators in state capture has been yet held accountable.
Absolutely. It's a good point to make about, taking personal accountability, because we know in any black market there are willing sellers, but there are also willing buyers, and that's how it survives. Cynthia Stimpel, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Really do appreciate it. Cynthia, of course, is a whistleblower.